Personal experience. Maybe
Hey everyone.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello everyone.
Hi Ken. Hi Jackie. Hi everyone. Hi Nancy. I think your connection is getting settled. So I guess in the true spirit of the topic that we're going to talk about today, why don't we get started? We are dealing with a little bit of technical difficulties and last minute issues some of our members had. The four of us will anyways try our best to make the most of all the challenges, and I think it's a real test of emotional intelligence at work last minute. So yeah, we're going to live what we will talk about in today's call, and if it's okay with everybody, I'll just maybe start. Kay and Jackie, and we'll just go around the table and do the best we can. Yeah.
Perfect, go for it.
All right, so I am Manisha Gupta. I lead product management at Oracle. I lead the HCM Analytics, People Analytics product suites. And I am a very strong proponent of this notion of emotional intelligence at work. Everything we do at work, family, whatever roles we play, it's a lot to do with trust, fostering trust, and how we help each other, how we understand each other, how we work with each other, collaborate with each other. So definitely emotional intelligence is something I read about quite a lot. And social intelligence, or our capability to network with each other and understand each other, is almost like paramount to achieving anything we want to achieve today. Because man anyways is a social animal, but in our connected world, it's no more just about what we do and how we do, but it's also about whom we know and with whom we do. Right. So I'm very excited to meet all of you, Kay and Nancy and Jackie today, and continue the conversation. How about we pass the ball, and then that way we'll keep going. So on my right is Kay. So Kay, if it's okay, I'm going to pass the ball to you.
Thank you. So I'm so glad to see that this panel is about social and emotional intelligence, because a lot of what you read out there and the focus is really just on emotional intelligence. And that emotional intelligence is absolutely a key component of the broader scope of social intelligence. So it's more about kind of managing yourself. But as you were saying, Manisha, that it's really important that we are not just aware of ourselves and others, but then we use those techniques and capability to improve the way we work with others. And if you think about all that's going on in the world and all the negotiations that are happening, it's critical to be able to apply that to actually move forward and make progress and working cooperatively and collectively with other people. So I'm really glad to see this. And back in 2012, I got certified by the Institute of Social and Emotional Intelligence. So I was kind of aware of both of the components. And so I'm really glad to be here. So I'd like to turn it over to Jackie at this point.
Thank you, Kay. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm incredibly passionate about emotional and social intelligence, and I see them going hand in hand and deeply intertwined. And I think at the heart of it for me, it's really about this idea of how important emotional and social intelligence is, an ability to lead and work well with others, especially in the world of work today at the rapid rate of change. It's come to the forefront, and this ability to harness both intelligence and emotional intelligence, and social intelligence being a part of that, and that really being the differentiating factor, both as a leader of others or a leader of self, and that ability to work well in a team environment, whether that is hybrid, in person, or online, and an ability to adapt that. So I'm eager to jump into the conversation and really dive into how do we develop EQ? How do we actually do that? How do we build that skill? Because it is something that we can develop over time. And I think that is of utmost importance to me. Renzi, are you with us? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay now?
Yes, now we can hear you. Yes.
Oh, finally, thank you so much. Apologies for that one. Thank you, panelists, for introducing yourselves. So let's start with the baseline first on just for everyone who's new into emotional intelligence and social intelligence, specifically social intelligence. What do they really mean? What does emotional intelligence, and what's the difference with emotional intelligence and social intelligence? Who would like to start with that one?
Well, I can go. I'm a researcher, and so when I was preparing for this panel, I found this fantastic article by Dr. Prashant B on LinkedIn. I can actually see if I can put it in the chat, but he distinguished the two, I think, very well. He said that the social intelligence is much bigger, and it's really the superset that includes emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is really the ability to recognize and manage your own emotions and those of others. And social intelligence is really more about what you develop, not from just being able, to utilize the capabilities of emotional intelligence, but to apply it then to your experience with people and learning from success and failures in social circumstances and scenarios. So the social intelligence is sort of like tact or common sense, but emotional intelligence definitely contributes to social intelligence. So they're kind of equally important. I don't know if that helps explain the difference between the two, but
I think I'd love to add to that if I may. So,
go ahead.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Kay. So I think it's almost, for me, emotional intelligence is the baseline for social intelligence, because without it, if you aren't able to perceive your own emotions, to understand your emotions, to recognize them, to be able to label them, to be able to see how you're being triggered, it's that foundation into that ability to then understand oneself and then be able to relate to others and to be able to see that in others, and the ability to know how to actually adjust your behavior based on the other person and what they might be feeling or sensing. And it's that perception that if you can understand yourself, then you can begin to perceive how others might be feeling in a certain situation, and to be able to understand that emotion and foresee it, and then to be able to manage and regulate that emotion both in yourself and with others. And by doing that, you actually harness that power of social intelligence, which makes you really great at networking, relating, building relationships, connecting, and driving relationships. So I just wanted to add to your explanation, Kay. Thanks.
I think, PNC, your connection is again a little disturbed.
Can you guys hear me okay or no?
We can now, but in between
Okay.
it was getting cut off again.
Okay. So from what I heard from you, Kay and Jackie, emotional intelligence is basically around self-awareness, understanding your own emotion, but also understanding the emotion of other people. But you also both mentioned about self-regulation and also self-management, which is basically if you have that awareness about your emotions, you're better able to not only just understand people around you, but also work with them really, really well. Because if we understand the emotion, that basically drives that harnessing of relationships in the workplace. Like when we talk about emotional intelligence, this is the topic that have been out front center, especially during the pandemic and even after the pandemic, where they're saying CEOs these days need more emotional intelligence rather than like understanding the business strategy and whatnot. So my question to any of you, maybe I'll start with you, Manisha. My question to you is, what do you think are the current challenges now? Because emotional intelligence is nothing new in the world. What are the current challenges? Why emotional intelligence is still quite slow within the leadership?
Sure. So I am an analytical person. I am building analytical products, and I'll maybe just close the first question and then come to this. I think one way of understanding the difference between emotional and social intelligence would be, the insights to action concept. So are you aware of what you think, how you feel? Are you aware of how the other person thinks? So that would be emotional intelligence. I understand you. I understand myself. Can I act with that intelligence intelligently? That's a funny statement, but can I use that awareness intelligently and act, right? So convert that awareness into an actionability. That would be social intelligence. And it is like a couple of other aspects of social intelligence, same signals perceived in China versus India versus Iran, Iraq, or US would probably have a very different connotation because culture has played to it. Right? So social intelligence definitely is a superset beyond an understanding human signals. Now, the question about why is it important? I think both IQ and EQ are important. In fact, I've heard conversations like NQ, network intelligence, or social intelligence. Many aspects of it. You've got to be very rounded if you are in a leadership role. Since the pandemic, especially with remote work, with a lot of isolated workers, sometimes not getting that same level of touch points with each other or with their leaders, it's even more paramount that every manager and every leader is in touch with their team members, right? And is fostering an environment where the teams are in touch with each other, right? So if I'm hired remote and I'm working remote and once in a blue moon I show up or am expected to come to work, how do you connect with people? And you're expected to connect, collaborate, understand all of them together. So the role for leadership from that perspective has grown. It's almost like it's no more a luxury. You have to create an environment where trust is fostered. You have to provide tools, techniques, regular touch points. You have to conduct one-on-ones in a manner that even a person who's not so open to speaking has to become comfortable to speak, right? So if everybody's on the Zoom all the time, and let's say there's an introvert and an extrovert, how do you create a forum where we will go round table, everybody gets to speak for a minute, and then just the structure of the conversation will have to change. So competition is always going to be high. How effective you form a team from a set of really highly intelligent, effective individuals, how do you convert that into a team is always an EQ conversation. But in the world of remote work, flex work, global world, even before pandemic, when you have cultural teams across multiple countries, how do you create an environment where they're trusting each other is important, and leadership has a key role for that. I'm going to just maybe stop here and love to hear what Kay and Jackie have to say.
Well, I think it's really all about the leader sincerely caring about their team, who they report to, and even those who don't directly report to them, and really just making an effort to connect with them by being empathetic, by being an active listener. And, I know my boss is very adept in emotional intelligence, and she truly cares about people. She listens. If there's anybody that doesn't love her. So she does bring out the best in everyone. And it's, it's key to leadership right now is to, reaching out to people at an individual level, understanding them, what makes them tick, what are their goals, what are their objectives, what makes them happy. And it's all those kinds of things that really, I think, highlight a highly emotional, intelligent leader in this day and time. And you know what? There's so much going on in the world right now. There are so many distractions that I feel like we just almost have to double down on this emotional intelligence, because so many people are distracted right now, and understandably so. So, it's even more important right now that we make this a priority.
Yeah.
I think if I can.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Oh, no, I was just going to add to it just to keep it short and sweet. But I think the reality is that the world of work has changed, and it is always changing. But what hasn't changed is this need for connection, and this need for a sense of belonging, passion and purpose. And how, as a leader, if you don't have emotional and social intelligence, then how can you even create a sense of belonging within your team? And we know after the pandemic, we know that people are craving more of the sense of belonging. They're wanting this purpose, this connection. Like Kay said, their goals must connect back to the organization's goals. But if you're not making that connection and seeking to understand and trying to find out what those are, and truly making individuals feel like they are valued and they're part of the team and part of the long-term goals. Look, everybody has different objectives and so forth, but we know that well-being is front of mind, and you cannot create an environment where people feel like they belong, they feel like their passion or their passion is connected, or there's a sense of well-being without understanding them and really connecting at that level. So I think that is the connection, and that is one of the greatest challenges. It's also an environment that is many environments have changed, and people are wanting maybe less, different generations are wanting different things, and maybe less transactional and so forth. But I'll stop there. Go for it.
I'm really liking what you guys are saying. I think I just want to stress
I think your connection is weak again. Is that Jackie? Kay, can you hear him? Okay. All right. Okay. And see if you can hear us. We are hardly able to hear you. I think the connection is choppy again.
Can you guys hear me okay now? Apologies for this, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
It's
what I was saying. Yeah. Okay. So what I was saying was like, however true what you guys have said about emotional intelligence is very important for leadership team because it strengthens sense of belonging and connectedness. The reality is leaders are actually challenged in really embodying emotional intelligence and living the social intelligence at work. What do you think is the reason behind why is it so challenging for leaders to actually embody emotional intelligence and social intelligence in a workplace?
I can start. I mean,
please.
I'm not 100% in agreement that leaders are challenged. I think, I mean, it's a mindset, right? I mean, in the end, everything, like probably the biggest asset we have is our mindset. And the process of sometimes selecting management probably can be improved a little bit. we look at the best performer in the team and we say, okay, you are going to be promoted to become a manager, right? When really management is an enablement job, and doing, it's like moving from doing to enabling, or from being an actor to being a director. And that transition of a new manager who eventually grows up to become a leader, somewhere the coaching of, it's about helping others, it's about connecting with them, listening to them, empathizing with them, is never a part of the coaching paradigm, right? On the other hand, the financial aspect of business, like your operating KPIs, your financial KPIs, that's almost like drill down. So when we talk about goals, we talk about what project are being worked upon. I mean, what is the delivery pattern? How much of the finance? So we are constantly instilling the need to stay focused, go for trainings on the financial and operational end. But somewhere the transition of an individual contributor to a manager who eventually will grow and become a leader and an executive, that aspect of coaching of, there's a shift. Like, so I'll tell you like my personal story. The first time I became a manager, it was a big vacuum. I was a software engineer. Suddenly I had a team of 7. So a day earlier, I am a high performer, and of course, feeling really good about myself. Next day you go back to work, and 8 hours later you come back not having written a single line of code. Like, that's like the whole day is gone in a vacuum. It took me almost 6 months of very constant, and I had a very good mentor, but very constant, reminder of, it's okay. Enabling 7 people is the way I contribute to business now. And I would, I have deep gratitude for my first manager who literally said, congratulations, you become a manager, you're responsible for 7 lives now. So please treat each of them very well, respectfully, right? That statement rings with me. That's not true for every peer and colleague of mine who have gone through a similar shift in mindset. So I don't honestly think it's a challenge. I think it's a little bit of a coaching gap sometimes. Some people naturally have a nurturing quality and have awareness about EQ and SQ and connect with people. Some others, we probably need to provide some coaching, and that has been missing from our curriculum and managerial development. It's improving, definitely.
Thank you, Manisha. Jackie, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just thought I might add. Obviously, it's not all leaders, right? But for those that it is a challenge, I think sometimes it might be a challenge because perhaps it's not valued. So we all have a set of values, right? And we all have a set of beliefs, and we have that at an individual level, and we have that at an organizational level. And the individual's a system, the organization's a system, and how these things come together. But I think what's important to understand is that it actually could come down to EQ, as in that it's not valued. It could be a personal bias. It might be that they're not actually seeing the need for EQ. They just want to get things done. And they think it's just more important to get tasks done, to make sure the results are there, that they don't need the EQ and the soft. Remember, the soft is the power skill, the soft is the hard, right? There's still a mindset, and it's something Manisha said, mindset is at the heart of this, but the mindset is still of, let's just execute, let's just perform. We don't need to care about how people feel or to spend time on that. We don't have time for that. We just need to get things done. We need to hit certain targets, and that we don't need the soft. And that's that's a bias, right? That's a misconception. And I think sometimes it comes down to the pressure to perform, and that EQ goes out the window, or just not actually valuing it in the workplace and not really believing that it translates to impacting the bottom line. I don't know how many conversations I have with organizations about the value of EQ and the impact it can have on the bottom line, the importance of kind of cultivating culture and having that impact on teams. And there's just this myth like, well, no, it's not going to impact the bottom line, so we don't care about it. And I'm not saying that every leader or every organization thinks that way, but I'm saying that there's still that mindset is still out there. And I think that might be one of the challenges, along with other areas. But I'm sure Kay wants to add, so I'm going to stop there. Go for it.
So I'd like to add to that. I think you can't just let leaders only be responsible themselves for social and emotional intelligence at work. There are 360 assessments that can be done. A lot of the companies that have voice of the employee, VOE engagement surveys have questions, that their employees are asked to answer about their manager. So manager capability, do they listen to me? Do I feel they really care about me? And so, there are definitely methods out there to measure it. And, I think that really, because it's such an important element of driving, maybe driving is not the motivating a successful team, that there needs to be some interventions and some expectations of performance, that if managers happen to fall short, in those particular capabilities, that part of their performance action plan, is to improve their emotional and social intelligence. And unlike your IQ, you kind of get stumped at a certain age. You're not able to grow that, but that's not true at all about social and emotional intelligence. It definitely can be learned. Even if you're a task-oriented person, I'm kind of more of a task-oriented person than a people person, but there's no excuse, really. There's no excuse.
I like what you guys are saying here. We started first with leadership, and now, Kay, you're saying actually it's not just the leader's responsibility, but it's everyone's responsibility. And you both all spoke about like the mindset, where everything starts with the mindset. And it seems like from what we're hearing from everyone, the starting point of a challenge is always around either leaders or people in the organization are not buying into what is this emotional intelligence, what is this social intelligence. So my question to all our panelists now, and maybe for our attendees as well, please write down in the comment maybe some of the things that you guys have done in your organization, is around, as HR professionals, where do you begin? If mindset is the starting point, how do we shift the mindset of leaders or people for that matter, so that they really understand the value of improving or harnessing emotional intelligence and social intelligence in the workplace? Where does one begin? So I'll give you guys just maybe a minute. While you guys are thinking about that, I'm going to invite all our participants. Please, if you also have some practical tips, this is a nice sharing platform for our HR community. Please write down in the chat, what are some of the practical things that you can share with everyone who are joining us today around where does one start when it comes to shifting the mindset of leaders or people around the value of emotional intelligence, just to make it really practical in the workplace. All right.
So I think it starts at the executive level. In organizations that I've worked in, there have been certain leaders that actually were open, honest, and transparent and said, I got this job, but it's contingent on me having a coach. Because I'm not as emotionally intelligent as I really should be. I'm not always aware of what I say and how I say it. That is a great story to stand up there, and be vulnerable and say, I didn't get it either, but now, it's making a big difference in my leadership, my ability to move up in the organization, and the support that I get from my team and helping, to accomplish the goals. I think a story like that can be very compelling to at least to start with.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kay.
I think in the previous round, we kind of collected the answers together. So it's about a story, right? The only proven way to coach anybody on a behavioral shift or a mindset is stories, right? So identify the stories of effective leaders, like to Kay's point. Any behavioral change is better done top down, especially this kind of a big challenge, right? But there are leaders who are really effective. There are like middle managers at different levels who are running a very effective team. Retention for more than 4 years, people just never leave. Or managers, whenever they touch a person, they tend to grow. There are so many patterns we can recognize, and then have those leaders speak up, like share their stories publicly as coaching stories, right? So this is what this manager did. He runs a one-on-one in a fabulous manner. Every Monday morning, they have this prompt, which, how are you feeling today? Like simple things like that. So I like what Kay said. maybe IQ gets capped, but EQ never gets capped, right? So identify stories, really float them around. There are stories in our ancient scriptures about, like, there's stories everywhere. There's stories in movies about how people connect with each other, the warm, fuzzy feeling. And then, of course, the task follows up. And maybe, I think, Jackie, I was just writing it down, maybe we work on a way to actually connect the impact of EQ on bottom line also. Because I think, there is definitely an inferred, indirect way. I've seen everybody agree with that. We just haven't made it a part of P&L. And if we all focus in doing it, there has to be a way, right? Like, if you are not connected, your tenure is less, your attention is less. You probably are not going to hire or retain high performers, or the effectiveness of the team is low, productivity. Eventually, they all will connect with some financials. So I would say two things: float stories of effective managers, start top down, and then second, find a matrix which connects it with the financials, because that speaks at the board level.
Thank you so much, Manisha. Jackie, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, I think what's really important here, and to add to that, the stories are critical. We do see lots of incredible stories around the culture of organizations that have done really well in the market and how they speak to. It's all about the emotional intelligence and the culture and the belonging that has driven the bottom line. But I think one of the quickest ways to shift a mindset is an eye-opening experience. That that aha moment when you suddenly realize the impact you are having on someone else. And so if you can do that 360 and start getting that feedback, right, that should start to create that awareness of the impact that I might be having on someone else. We know that saying, right? People lead people, or people lead managers. And it is so true. If I was to ask the question to you, if I was to put it out there, I'm sure that I would get a response like, what percentage of people left companies, not because of their company, but because of their leader or other people, right? And that comes down to emotional and social intelligence, and that has an impact on the retention, the engagement, the morale, the productivity, and so we can go on and on. But if we get that feedback and we have that realization that our lack of emotional intelligence is impacting those that we work with, we start to realize how it impacts the bottom line. So that feedback loop is what I'm talking about, that continuous feedback loop, to have those aha moments in order to realize the impact that we are having on others. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, we can all have moments of reflection of knowing the impact that we've had on others, and that impact that it's cost the business. So that would be a key starting point for me that I just wanted to add in there.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Just to, if I can summarize from what I've heard, I think Kay mentioned something about making sure that the leaders actually role play this. Manisha mentioned something about using the power of storytelling, but at the same time linking it with the bottom line of the business. And Jackie, you also mentioned about the power of that feedback loop. Give them feedback about, what's working, what's not working, how are they demonstrating EQ and SQ in the workplace, and then continue to improve that EQ and SQ journey. I just also want to highlight, we have comments also from our participants today. One said employee resource group might be a good way to advocate from the ground up as well. So it's creating that community support group, because Kay, you mentioned like EQ, SQ are not only responsibilities of leaders. I think that
I think you're breaking up again.
What's wrong? Is that better?
Yes. That's
okay.
Better.
Yeah. But did you get the most part of what I mentioned from the chat? I was just mentioning, like, someone in the comment section mentioned the importance of resource groups, like building communities in the workplace, because Kay mentioned it's not just a top-down approach, but it's a collective responsibility of everyone in the workplace. So I think that's a great one as well. So keep these comments coming, everyone. So this is a sharing platform. We are almost done with the session today. So maybe another question I want to ask us, Manisha, you rightly put there, leaders usually listen if they know if there's an impact on the bottom line of the business, that it's not just mushy, nice to have, oh, EQ is high or SQ is high. So from your experience, if you guys can share maybe your personal stories working with leaders in the past, how have you connected the dots when it comes to the importance of EQ and SQ in driving the business bottom line?
I can share quite a few stories. I think so I'll start with my journey, starting as a manager, and I'll go back to Jackie's comment where it was like you feel it when you create an aha moment. Human beings are intelligent that way. So you can see it in somebody's eyes, even if the words are not speaking, that I made a difference. And then you can experience, like I experienced myself, like first time manager, go-getter, you're trying to drive everybody the way you would have driven the cycle yourself. Doesn't work. And then you let somebody, it's okay, try. I'm standing right behind you in case you fall. And they fly. Right. So it happened with me. Their code was better than mine. There was a reason I was a manager, not a coder anymore, because they were really good at it. That feeling of let go and really appreciating them for their strengths developed a deeper relationship between the two of us, right? So the team became stronger. So I would say the starting point is about experiencing that aha moment, and then maybe coaching somebody else in your team to also seek those aha moments, because it's almost like you're working on your own mindset, and you're experiencing the impact, the number of lines of code that was written or the features we developed within a 3-month period. I didn't have to remind people. They were self-motivated to do it because it was their decision to do what they were doing. And I was just an enabler, a true enabler. So that itself helped me understand, like there was no numbers. But as I grew up the ladder, there are some, like I was talking about, there are hardcore KPIs companies are tracking. So for example, attrition is a KPI. And that notion, again, we discussed that people leave managers and not managers. We created this concept, it's in our product actually, but we created this concept of team effectiveness, where we look at multiple aspects of which within a team, and I would say it's not just about the team leader, it's about many features. So we don't call it manager effectiveness, it's really the team cohesively. What is the attrition? What is the diversity within the team? What is the engagement scores? So we just bring all of them together and try to correlate the impact together. Right. And then imagine that HR KPI is correlated with operational KPIs. So for example, now you can say within a sales team, what is the diversity, what is the attrition, what is the hiring frequency, what is the absenteeism, and what is the sales quota attainment. That sales quota is a hard number, everybody gets it. Change that with customer service tickets, change that with code features release, change that with revenue. So you start automatically, like the data starts teaming up with the individual leaders to see, well, something is working really well within these 3 teams and the 4th team likely needs some help. And then I would say the moment you say EQ is a problem, come on, nobody's going to listen to you directly, right? But you say, hey, this is what the data is saying. Perhaps we should talk and find out how this leader is, operating versus this leader is. Maybe there is a feedback that can be shared. Maybe there's a training or a coaching that can be offered. And I think that, I would say what I've done is used numbers to plant the seeds of thoughtfulness in some leaders who are anyways pretty aware. And then things happen. So you have to be cautious about not taking a very hard line, in my opinion, of it is EQ. Because of that, it's not happening. Like, you've got to lead them towards the journey, and then they will automatically find out, there is a gap in the mindset. The mindset needs to shift. And then,
Thank you, Manisha. Anyone else would like to jump in and add on that?
So I'm in the talent space, and return on investment for learning, is difficult. Jack Phillips is probably the leader, the expert in that arena. It's not easy to do, but I agree with Manisha that you really need to strive to measure what was the outcome. And certainly, if you have 360 assessments and coaches. I actually was in a leadership development program where we had 360 assessments, and then we had some coaching from the expert there to help us through it. You certainly can, have those kinds of learning opportunities, and then you can tie those. So, for example, in a lot of companies I mentioned previously, they have voice of the employee score and they have a manager effectiveness score. So it'd be interesting to see the managers that went through that 360 assessment and the coaching, and to see how they improved, especially if you targeted those managers that had lower scores in manager capability in the area of social and emotional intelligence. And really, social and emotional intelligence is connected to so many other things. I'm also a change practitioner. And, when I look for that executive sponsor, I want someone that truly is going to care about the employees and really expound upon not what only is in it for the organization, but what's in it for the employees in terms of, if they support the change, buy into the change. So there's just so many different theories like this that are interconnected, and we need to be using all of them that we can. So Jackie, I assume you have some thoughts around that.
Yeah, I'd love to just jump in here. You said speak from personal experience, and there's one story that is at the top of my mind. We work in the coaching and leadership development space, and I remember working with a sales team that had hit rock bottom. And so there was a group of regional managers, and the communication had broken down. The employee retention was, they couldn't keep a team. They just couldn't keep a team. And that, obviously, you can imagine the impact on the cost of training. If you keep losing your team in such a short space of time, that IP, that knowledge, it keeps going out the window, right? And so the costs were clear. It was absolutely clear on the bottom line. And what we ended up having to put in place is really exactly some of the stuff that both Manisha and Kay have spoken about. It's starting at the beginning and really getting them. We did, start with the 360, get all the feedback, exit interviews. We had to do personality tests. We had to set up coaching for them. We had to really look at how to work deeply with these individuals to make them realize the impact, not only of how they were communicating with their team members, how they were showing value to them, what that actual experience was, why were these people leaving? Why were they not happy? What was going on? And it went further than that. It was not just within the team. You can imagine the impact of, EQ and social intelligence in sales, right? You've got to have that in order to be able to build relationships and to sell. So it was impacting the numbers directly. The story was there. And so that whole process over time, and then the outcome there of that journey and that process, that combined coaching, 360 personality assessments, exit interviews, going through a long-term intervention, because let's remember, you cannot change behavior overnight. It's a journey. So there's a real process, and it takes time to change that behavior. But that journey over time, and the metrics on the other end, was that ability to retain a team, to get the numbers back up, and that's actual bottom line numbers in the sales team, their actual performance. And that story in my mind was the real kind of connection of all of this and the impact of EQ, not just on keeping a team together and transforming the performance, but of the actual performance of the sales team and ultimately the bottom line.
Yeah. So from what I'm gathering from all of you, it's really multidimensional and multifaceted. So we cannot just measure one thing and directly link it to the bottom line of the business. What you guys are saying is that we need to look at the different touch points in order for us to be able to connect it, or even prove there's a correlation to how we can influence the business bottom line. And perhaps this is the point, like where everyone is already waiting, is like some of the practical strategies around how do you harness then emotional and social intelligence to create that meaningful relationship at work. So we're just going to circle back to this one. You guys have mentioned earlier around coaching. Kay mentioned about training. Jackie, you mentioned about feedback loop. But if you were to pick maybe 3 things in your repertoire of what you have used and what has worked for you in the past when it comes to really harnessing the power of EQ and SQ in the workplace to create that meaningful relationship, what are those 3 things? Now, I'll give you some time to think about that. In the meantime, I'm going to invite also our participants in the chat. Please drop down also, what are some of the 3 things, three tips that you would like to share with everyone else who are joining us today in this session on how can you really harness the power of EQ and SQ in the workplace? What are those 3 things that you would maybe give tips to our HR community? All right. So who would like to start?
I'm going to just dive straight in, and I'm actually going to start very much at the individual level because I really think it starts with everybody. And I think for me, it's actually just 3 very simple things. And you can go on a journey through this, but you have to start with understanding self. So you need to understand what your personal triggers are, and organizations can take individuals on that journey to help them unearth their deeply held beliefs and values and how these have shaped and their experiences shaped who they are and what those personal triggers are. Because if you cannot see your personal triggers, then you cannot understand why in any communication or any situation you might be responding in a certain way. So that is the first, and I really truly believe it starts with self. The second one there is just always seeking to understand. So it's just a principle I always hold at the top of my mind, like seek to understand the other person's perception, seek to understand how they're feeling, seek to understand what is going on for them versus what's going on for me. And if you can just, that one kind of sentence keep top of mind, it's a starting point for all kind of a place to move forward. And then I think the third point up there for me is just this ability to continue that feedback loop, because you know what, we can regress. We can kind of go forward and then we can regress. And I just think that continuous feedback loop. And those are just 3 simple things from my side.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Who would like to go next? Go ahead, Kay.
So I really agree with Jackie, a lot of what she said. I think the number one thing, and I actually did this shortly after I became certified as a social emotional intelligence coach, and that is really becoming a people watcher. I remember I was in a pediatric office, so this really, well, I was there because I was a coach, so I was going to coach the doctor. But anyway, I just put my phone down and I just started looking around the room, and I saw this woman holding a tiny baby, and her face was so full of worry. You could just see it on her face. It was just very outward. And so I began thinking, well, I wonder, is she worried about her baby? Is her baby very sick, or is she worried about something else? And that was one of, the key elements that helped me, I think, try to become more other aware. And, I have some other situations where I usually take a book on an airplane, and I decided not to read my book and actually witnessed a young child that was flying alone that was very scared, and I was able to connect with him and understand he needed help to get to his gate because he was terrified that he was going to not be able to do that on his own. So it's just, I see so many people walking around like this, with their phone in front of their face in parking lots. They're about to get run over by cars, and just stop and start people watching. I'm not even going to my second and third, but that is, for me, that was just, a profound experience.
Thank you, Kay. Manisha?
Yeah, it's difficult to, I think, top what has already been said, but it has to start with awareness, awareness of self and others for sure. I think the other thing is curiosity. Maybe it's connected with what Kay was saying, but curiosity to really understand what's going on in somebody else's life, and almost like a commitment to yourself that you will appreciate different perspectives, right? So like I've had the luxury of working in many countries, and if you enter a new country with the fixed notion of this is how things should be, sometimes you really lose the opportunity to both learn and connect with people, right? So like life has taught me to be like, I get excited now. Any country, like, doesn't matter what my age is, I'm like, oh my god, new country, what are the culture of this country, how do they speak, how do they deal with strangers, what happens when they are under stress? And that has helped me understand humanity a lot more. I mean, to the point that actually my daughter, she's now a college grad, we ended up writing a book. It's called When You Talk, Let's Really Talk. So no more superficial conversations, but like one deep, meaningful conversation with a stranger. And you never forget that stranger, because everybody becomes a story, right? And we say that in the end, we are all a story. Let's just make ours the best one, or at least a good one for somebody to read. So now we are curious to understand everybody's stories, whether it's at work, whether it's neighbors or whoever. And in the process, you just start appreciating, what they bring to your life. The second thing probably would be this book from Adam Grant. He was my professor at Wharton, but he talks about give and take. I think when there is a situation, and you feel the other person is not responding, just error out and give more before you even expect to get back, right? Because not everybody is in this panel. So don't expect that, hey, I'm taking 5 steps forward to understand. It's okay if they don't take a few steps. But I think eventually with love and with consistency, and you are helping them, human beings like to help each other. So just be a little bit more patient, give before you are even wanting to take back, and be curious, why is he not giving? Like, what's wrong? Like, yeah, it falls in place. Yeah.
Thank you, Manisha. Kay? Oh, sorry.
Well, I did think about
Oh.
the second thing for me, and it's becoming more aware of my emotional behavior when, and I try to recognize my triggers when I get frustrated. Sometimes it comes out in my emails, and my boss is great at, immediately saying, okay, we need to talk. I just want to give you some feedback. And, that's really very helpful. So trying to, recognize your triggers and to just step back and don't react, don't respond. I read something the other day that 90 seconds is a good amount of time to just kind of pause before you do something that you might regret a little bit. But then seek out that feedback from others, especially if you know that you do have those trigger moments.
I love hearing all your practical examples. And thank you for also being vulnerable, for sharing your personal stories. And thank you, everyone. Also, like I'm reading the comments from our people as well. Like they're sharing like their top 3. Some of the comments are really good. So thank you so much also for participating. We're almost close to one end of the session today. So maybe just one more question to everyone, and then we'll wrap up the discussion today. If you were to use a metaphor to describe EQ and SQ and its importance in the workplace, what is that metaphor for you? Okay, I'll give you again a minute to think about this one. In the meantime, I'm going to invite our viewers, because we have a huge lineup of amazing topics and amazing speakers this month. So please make sure to subscribe to Hacking HR, and check also your LinkedIn to make sure that you're also following Hacking HR to know what's happening on a regular basis within our HR community. So for our final question, what is that metaphor that would describe what EQ and SQ mean for you? Who would like to have a go?
For me, I think it's the keys to success. And, maybe you have a primary key, and then you have a second key in case you lose the first one.
Yeah. Thank you, Kay.
I think, okay, for it, Manisha, sorry.
It's all right. Go for it.
Go ahead, Jackie.
I think for me, it would be the connection between head and heart.
Head and heart. Thank you so much, Jackie. Manisha?
So I'll cheat a little bit. I'll say 2 things. I think the biggest asset we have is our mindset. So we should invest in EQ and IQ. And as a leader, I would say it's insights to action. awareness is important, but then actionability is really the key to eventual delivery or success. So for me, EQ is insights and SQ is action. You can't take the right action without the right insight.
Manisha, Kay, Jackie, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your experience and insights about emotional and social intelligence and how do we harness the power of both in creating meaningful relationship in the workplace. Also, I want to thank our participants also today, our viewers from all over the world. Thank you for joining us. And this is me, Renzi, signing off. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight.